Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. The goal of this podcast is to help you, the business owner, understand your financial numbers so you can make better decisions. If you want to hear about each of the chapters in Profit First, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how of what I do. Episode 2 is Mike Michalowicz and I talking about Profit First and so much more. Today, I have one of two Profit First bankers in the country on to share how to build and better utilize your bankers' experiences and how Profit First makes your company more lendable from the bank standpoint and more valuable when you decide to sell it. Greg Martin is a commercial banker at BB&T Bank, now Truist. With over 14 years of banking experience, he's an entrepreneur's insider into the banking industry. He believes that every person is uniquely designed for a higher purpose and calling, and he strives to support that purpose and calling professionally and personally. Greg is the creator of the Entrepreneur's Banker brand and is a certified Profit First banker. Before his career in banking, Greg was an officer in the United States Army serving with the 82nd Airborne Division. He's been deployed 3 times and has been awarded the Bronze Star Medal and the U.S. Army Ranger Tab. When not empowering or coaching entrepreneurs, Greg can be found on a date with his wife of 18 years or shooting hoops with his 11-year-old son. To learn more or to connect, check out theentrepreneur'sbanker.com. Let's meet our guest. Hi, Greg. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man show. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, Rocky, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to talk to you and your listeners. I know Profit First has been something that's been so instrumental and eye-opening to me. And I just want to thank you for what you're doing, getting the word out about Profit First and really telling people, hey, this is a system that can make your life and your business so much better. You just have to pay attention to it.
And that is very true. And you're also a Profit First professional, so we all get to hang out with Mike and get all our questions answered by the experts and help business owners implement the system.
Exactly.
So we've just been through COVID. We're still in the midst of it. And one of the things that I've noticed is that some business owners had relationships with banks and some did not. I'd like to ask you, why do you think it's important to build a relationship with your bank?
Well, I think that first off, just like every other relationship that you have in your business or even in your personal life, you have that relationship with people. And a lot of times having that deep relationship, that connection has been very, very beneficial. What I am talking with a lot of my clients and quite frankly, talking with a lot of prospects about is that through this time, through this unknown last couple of months that we've gone through the PPP rollout, and actually we're recording this right after the 4th of July. So President Trump actually extended the PPP deadline or availability because there are still funds that are out there. Having a banker that knows you, that knows your business is so critical because it really allows you to be able to take full advantage of all the bank products and services. And one of the things that I talk to clients about is that I don't want to be a banker that just knows you and knows your business, that when you walk into the branch, I can see you. I know your name. I know your kids' names. I slap you on the back. Maybe we go out to lunch once a year. Maybe we go play golf, whatever. I want to be friendly, and I want to be friends with all my clients that I work with and that I support. But more importantly, I want to be a banker that is actually beneficial to them, someone that they look at as a member of the Fab Five. That's the 5 people that I say entrepreneurs kind of surround themselves with. And bankers have to prove worthy of being in that. So proving worthy of being that is actually bringing value and advice and support beyond just a slap on the back or a round of golf. It is about saying, how can I use my area of expertise, my experience dealing with your industry, or maybe the wherever your business is, and being able to support you and push you towards success, however you define it.
And so I think for some business owners, they may not even realize what they don't know that they should be asking for. So what should they be asking their banker for then?
Well, and I would say that 90% of that blame rests on the bankers and the banking professional. For far too long, we as an industry have forgotten that the amount of knowledge and the amount of experience that we have helping entrepreneurs is really valuable to our clients. We have allowed ourselves to become salespeople in suits, to be able to just go out and say, the best thing that I offer you is a lower rate on your interest on your loan. Now, that's important. And I'm not saying that that's not important. But I would say that first off, the blame lies with the bankers because we have not communicated the value to the entrepreneurs. But then from an entrepreneur's perspective, it would be to actively go out and to say, okay, Mr. or Mrs. Banker, you said you want to be a partner. You say you want to be my banker. Well, I expect my banker to come out to my shop, because how in the world can you catch and see my vision of the future if you don't see the world through my eyes? And so inviting them out there, and some of this may be that you educate the banker on your business, on the nuances of the specifics of your business, to be able to say, okay, here's what I do that makes things very specific. And here's how I really stand out from my competition. And then to say, okay, you know where I am. You know where I want to be. Okay, banker. At the heart of what a lot of bankers do is we are risk experts. We look at a lot of different types of risk, whether that be cash flow risk, liquidity risk, leverage risk, concentration risk. Maybe it's a key man or key woman risk. But we look at all different types of risks, and to be able to say, okay, I see where you are, Mr. Entrepreneur. I see where you want to go. Here's some risks that are in between here and there. And so let's talk about the severity of those risks. Let's talk about how you can protect yourselves from those risks. Because look, entrepreneurs and bankers are going to look at risk completely different. I mean, that's the difference between an entrepreneur that has the courage to step up and start their own business and a banker that supports them. But the fact of the matter is, there are risks out there. And if there's no risk, there's no reward. But you had better know and understand the risks.
And I think that's a major problem, right? We get blindsided. If we don't even understand there's a risk, how do we even deal with it? And so being aware of the different risks and facing them, I think is an important part of it. I'm naturally risk adverse, and I naturally see risk in everything. And so that's one of my talents, that it has a good side and a bad side, right? The bad side is I'm less likely to try something different. But the good side is I will make sure that everything is pretty close to perfect, or that we know what the risks are and we've got a plan to handle them before taking action, so that we have a better probability of a great outcome.
That's so spot on, Rocky. And I love how you said that. I would challenge you. You're not as risk averse as you think, though, because you're an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurs are some of the most risky taking people that I know, but they're calculated risks and they bet on themselves.
And that's correct. I took a very calculated risk, and I understood all the levers, and I understood where I was at and what was going on. So it took me a while to get here, longer than maybe it should have, but I was willing to leap. And I always tell people, leap with a parachute, right? So I figured out my risks.
I think I'm going to steal that. That's good. Well, coming from a former airborne ranger, I should have said that before, but that's great.
Well, the reality is you don't need a parachute to jump out of a plane. You just can't do it more than once.
That's correct.
So always lead with a parachute, know what your risks are and deal with them. I think a lot of times business owners think one way and bankers think another. What do you as a banker want to see from your clients in the terms of financials and projections?
Sure. That's a great question. And I think that by the nature of the two positions, one is always going to be more optimistic than another. Rocky, I can't tell you how many business plans I've looked at or how many projections that I've looked at. And every single entrepreneur caveats it with, okay, Greg, here are my projections. And I just wanted to let you know, I am extremely conservative in these. What I think is that we're going to do 10 times is this, but this is my most conservative approach. Now, what's the flip side? They're never going to come to me and be like, here are my projections, and these are so high, I don't think we're ever going to make them, but I want you to approve my loan based on that. So I don't expect that. But realistically, I think what I am looking for is, and what every other banker is looking for, is the parachute. Define your parachute for me. To be able to say, okay, here's where I'm going to go. So, Greg, I need to borrow $2 million. And with that, I'm going to get 5 new trucks, which is going to open up 3 new routes. Here's kind of the LOIs that I have, the letters of intent from my customers, that if I get the trucks, that I can have this. Here's the cash flow. Here's that I'm going to get from these new routes. Here's how I'm going to be able to prove that I can pay you back. And, oh, by the way, Greg, if this doesn't work out, here's my backup plan. Here's my parachute. Here's my back door. Call it whatever you want. But to be able to say, I've got enough cash flow from my existing business to be able to support this new enterprise, or I've got X amount of cash that's set aside that will give me time, that'll give me runway to service these routes, to get them up and running so that they're cash flowing themselves. What's the backup? What is the plan? Because at the end of the day, Rocky, bankers are going to, in most instances, going to require some type of collateral to protect their shareholders against potential loss. Again, it's a risk reward equation. But to say, well, you can just take the trucks and sell them. Well, I'm not in the truck buying business. If I was, I'd be a truck dealer. I wouldn't be a bank. So define for me your parachute. And I think that if a lot of entrepreneurs realize that, don't sell me on the what ifs. Be realistic about it, have logic, but then tell me your parachute, tell me your back door. That's what I wish entrepreneurs would know and learn to take away from this conversation.
So when people usually approach you for money, how many of them actually have a plan like you're talking about, ready to roll?
Me personally, I would say that 99% of them do. But part of that is, and this isn't anything that's special about me, but part of that is that I am very big on education. And I want to be able to show entrepreneurs, hey, here's what I'm looking at. When I look at your business plan, here's honestly what I'm thinking about. Answer these questions. And so we have discussions well in advance of the actual, okay, Greg, I'm ready to go, because I've educated them on what's required, what specifically I'm going to look for, how to identify specific risks, and then how do we protect themselves? How did the entrepreneur protect themselves, and how does the bank protect the entrepreneur and the bank protect itself? So I don't really have too many come at me that's like, okay, Greg, I want to borrow $1 million. And, I don't really know what I want to do with it. Luckily, I don't have that bad of an education problem, but most entrepreneurs come prepared. It's just not quite, like, seriously, 5% more effort would yield huge benefits for them.
And it's not hard to build that up over time. I know when you're saying your clients behave this way, are your clients typical of what we find out in the world?
I would say yes. If it's someone that wants to borrow money on a consistent basis, because the things that I'm talking about are not abnormal or specific to me or the institution that I work for. Anyone that goes to any bank and says, okay, I want to borrow money, but I don't have a really good plan for it, is probably going to get told no, come back with a plan, and then we'll talk about it. So unless they want to go, unless they are not willing to hear feedback from bankers, then I think most entrepreneurs come with a plan. A lot of them maybe just don't have realistic expectations or realistic knowledge of what a banker requires. For example, I did have a client that actually came a while back, and they wanted to start a new venture, a venture that they weren't in, and it was going to be a significant multi-million-dollar investment. And I sat there and I looked at the projections, I looked at the plan, I looked at all the rationale that they had, the performance, and to be able to say, okay, how does this work through? And as they were talking through it, it looked great on the surface, but I was like, guys, this is a business that doesn't exist right now. So we don't know if these numbers are correct. So let's talk about the back door. The back door is, do you have either yourself or someone else that has the ability, if you can't make this $8,000 a month payment because you open the business and let's say they miss the projections, if you don't have the ability, then how is the bank going to get paid back? And the answer to me of saying, well, I guess I'll go down to HEB or, Walmart, get a part-time job, is like, guys, that's not the right answer. So it's about, again, educating them on what does the bank really look for, and tell me your back door.
And that makes a lot of sense. What are the biggest mistakes that you see business owners make?
As it pertains to their banking relationship, one of the biggest mistakes I see is that they don't push their banker hard enough. And quite frankly, like I said, most bankers that I know that either I work with within my institution or I'm friends with outside of my institution, we are passionate about serving and supporting entrepreneurs. We may not necessarily have the courage to go out and become an entrepreneur ourselves, but we understand business and we understand some different risks. And we have been relegated either by ourselves or by our own industry to salespeople in suits. And so I don't think entrepreneurs push their banker hard enough to say, okay, how can you really bring value to me? How can you sit there and if I give you my financials on a consistent basis, that you come back to me with a very, very simple report and says, okay, you're doing great, or here's some areas of risk that we're starting to see. I actually had one client say, he said, Greg, you're the cheapest auditor and the cheapest consultant I will ever have, because I don't have to pay you a fee to do that. But if the banker does their job right, they help interpret the financials for the entrepreneur. Because a lot of entrepreneurs got into business not to read financials. I mean, heck, CPAs who prepare financials most of the time don't spend a lot of time looking at their own books, because a lot of entrepreneurs don't like doing it. So that's one mistake that I see entrepreneurs make, that they don't push their bankers hard enough. And the second thing is that they do not give enough credibility is not the right, but they don't give enough credit to the power of their business and then focus on their numbers to make sure that their business is permanently profitable. I mean, you and I are both profit first professionals, and so this is near and dear to both of our hearts. But Rocky, with the clients that I have helped input profit first into their business, I mean, I've got 2 or 3 of them that did not even have to consider taking a PPP loan, not because their business wasn't affected by it, by the downturn and all the things that's going on, but because they already had a strategic reserve built up to the point they're like, Greg, I can sustain this. If now it's not going to be easy, I'm going to have to make changes, but I'm good. And to have a business owner harness their business for profit and give them peace of mind through that, I wish every entrepreneur could read Profit First or listen to Profit First before they started their business.
And that's true. And so that's one thing that comes up a lot. Oh, does Profit First work for startups? Absolutely. And we've had one of the people who gave a testimonial, and he's a startup business. And after his first full quarter in business, he was able to take a profit sharing check.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, because it's baked into the business plan. That's the way he did it. So
wow.
I think people need to know that. And most of the people that I talk to who are using Profit First, they're all, like you said, they're all sitting on vaults of cash. They have the ability to weather the storm because coming into it, they had the right margins. They were taking excess cash out. They were focused on building the strong foundation in their business for their financials. And so however they're getting hit, they don't have the anxiety and the fear that the other business owners that I'm talking to have. So we know it works, and we know it works in tough times as well as good times.
You couldn't have said that better. Wow. I'm still blown away by a quarter into a new business and taking a profit distribution. I've got clients that aren't on Profit First and have been running their business for 15 years that have never taken an owner's distribution from profit. That's amazing.
Well, it's a mentality shift, right? It's, we have to feed our business. No, your business is supposed to feed you. That is the purpose of it, right? It's just, you've got to turn the way that you look at this totally around. And so that kind of leads into the next question, which I don't think people realize. But if you use Profit First and if you take care of your financials, there's a good chance you're going to have higher valuations when it comes time to sell. What have you found in that area?
Well, I've been able to help a couple clients with the financing of either an acquisition or at a very, very high level, trying to help them if they're selling. Most often I'm either on helping them acquire side or helping them maybe transition from one generation to the next. And part of that may be with bank financing. Part of that might be with generational seller financing. But walking through all of that and helping them to explore what is the right dollar amount and stuff like that. That's a very specific area of banking that I know a little bit about, so I'm dangerous, but I'm not one of the experts. But Rocky, at the end of the day, every single business is valuable for a couple different reasons. One is the assets that you have. Maybe you got a fleet of trucks, or you've got some very timely or some very well placed real estate locations. It is the ability for a strategic buyer to maybe to bolt on, to buy your business and then just kind of bolt it on very quickly and to increase their revenues and increase their profitabilities. Or in the most likely scenario is your ability to generate free cash or earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, EBITDA. And I know that's a sometimes a bank nerd term. Sometimes whenever you're getting into financing or looking at buying another business, it's a multiple of EBITDA. So, but what is that? At the end of the day, that is the ability for how much cash you as the current owner, and just as importantly, the new owners, how much cash are they going to have to be able to rake off of your business to either pay for it or for them to take themselves and to distribute to themselves. Because if you have got a strong business and it doesn't have a very good EBITDA, then if you're going to ask a multi-million-dollar figure for it, well, how's it going to pay for it? If you're going to ask me for $10 million and this thing only produces $100,000 of free cash a year, well, that's going to take me 100 years to pay you back? man, that's not going to work. So understanding your profit, understanding your margins, understanding what your specific industry looks at as far as valuations, and being able to boast your bottom line. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can increase your sales price, but none is more important or more effective than just showing EBITDA or showing profit. Because sure, I'll pay you that much money if that means that I get that cash stream coming in.
And that's what everyone wants. And the simplest, easiest way to understand that is profit. And
that's right.
The more cash you produce and throw off, the higher and the more valuable your business becomes. So you are one of two profit first professional bankers in the world. Why did you choose to become a profit first professional?
Well, I started my profit first journey started in a local Starbucks where a friend of mine, we were just connecting and just talking. He's like, "Have you heard of this guy, Mike Michalowicz?" And then I was like, "No, I hadn't heard of him." He's like, "Well, you need to read his book." And he actually started out with Pumpkin Plan. But there wasn't a Pumpkin Plan podcast, but there was a Profit First podcast. And so I just started listening to the podcast, consuming that. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to get my hands on it. So I, went to Amazon, ordered the book, consumed it, devoured it in like a weekend. And Rocky, I was like, oh my gosh, why doesn't every entrepreneur read this? And why doesn't every banker know this so that they can help lead and coach their entrepreneurs into permanent profitability? Do you know how easy my job is when I sit there and a client wants to borrow some money for either some new equipment or a new vehicle or a new piece of real estate, and they are just throwing a huge amount of profit off? I mean, I want to serve my clients, and debt is not always the answer. And that might be a little bit strange coming from a banker, but I'm very, very much in the camp of bootstrapping and being as debt averse as you possibly can. You only take on debt if it is going to increase your profit or it is going to sustain your profit. And if it's going to sustain your profit, you need to figure out how to get out of, well, either one of those, you need to figure out how to get out of debt as quickly as you can. But if it's a sustainment issue to say, okay, well, how can this is the Band-Aid. How can I take this Band-Aid, but what can I do in order to fix my business? Because continuing to get more debt is not a sustainable practice. But Rocky, if someone needs to borrow money and they've got all this profit, then one, I say, well, why are you coming to me for a loan? You got all this extra cash personally. How about you loan it to the business and pay yourself that interest? But if they don't want to do that, it makes my job a lot easier.
And that's what I think people should realize is that if you use Profit First and you build up your vault accounts, you can become a bank for your own business.
Yes.
And who better a customer to have than when you have the ability to pay yourself back because you control the checkbook, right?
Yes.
So you know how to do that and to do that well. And that's a big part of it. I mean, I tell people to set up accounts, whether it's for a new employee or a new piece of equipment, and start cash flowing it up front so that you can either pay cash, or if you need to sustain a payment, you already know what that payment feels like and you know whether or not you can handle it. And then you can use part of that money that you were putting aside to put as a down payment so that you have better margins and you get lower interest rates. And so all of this stuff works. You just got to do it. That's I love that, Rocky. That is really great advice to be able to have, and I think it's really, really cool that you stop paying me my 5 or 6% and have the business pay you as the bank 8, 9, 10, 12%. And that's on top of your salary. That's on top of your profit distributions. That's on top of your owner's compensation. That's a pretty cool gig. That very much it is. And most business owners usually have to sign their name on the loan, meaning they have to take personal responsibility for their business loans. And if you're in a solid position, you can probably borrow money pretty cheaply in a variety of different ways. And then you can just loan that money to the business and make margin on the spread as well. So yeah, there's tons of ways of doing this. So you've been using Profit First. I know you help people implement it. What have been some of the biggest success stories you've seen in helping business owners implement Profit First?
Well, the two that come to my mind immediately, one, it is the entrepreneur that came to me. So the last couple months, I've been very, very involved with the PPP program, and really to be able to help serve the entrepreneurs, my entrepreneurs and other entrepreneurs of my bank through this tough time. It's been very humbling. But it's been a lot of work, but it's been work that is noble and just, and serving and helping to save businesses, to save paychecks, to save families. That's been really, really cool. But then also through that, I alluded to this earlier, is that I had an entrepreneur that really up until 3 weeks ago had not uttered the words PPP to me. And I tried to do a very good job of keeping my clients up to date on all the changes. I mean, there was a while there, Rocky, that I was delivering content, videos, newsletters on a daily basis, just because it was changing so fast and you just didn't know. But as they were going through that, they basically ignored all that stuff because it's like, Greg, well, why do I need that? I've got my vault set up and I'm good. And now I've gone ahead, and 6 months ago, I eliminated all of my expenses that I thought were essential, but Profit First forced me to look at it and find a better way of doing that. So I've already eliminated all my the expenses that aren't essential. And I've got 2 or 3 other suppliers set up. So I'm reducing my cost of goods sold. And so for them to have flexibility and freedom to not even have to worry about a PPP loan, Rocky, that's so cool. And then another one is there's a client of mine who is in a seasonal industry. So during the summer, they'd have steaks and shrimp. During the winter, it was ramen and beanie weenies. And this was a business, and this was an entrepreneur that had grown up in this business. Like his parents were in the same business. And so this is all he knew. And we started Profit First right at the beginning of summer. So he was rolling into his busy season. And from the time that when he started, so his downtime or his slow time is about 4 months. The week before his downtime usually hit, he texted me. He said, check out my owner's comp account. And so I pulled it up. He's like, Greg, I've got enough in that owner's comp account to sustain me and my family for 6 months. That's 2 months beyond the slow time. And it was he said, thank you. And I was like, look, the thanks is not to me. The thanks is to Mike Michalowicz for putting this out. But the real thanks is to you and your wife, who took this seriously and did all the hard work themselves. And to be able to provide that stability and support to them, it was just, I mean, Rocky, that's why I do what I do. And then a bonus on top of that, he's like, oh, and by the way, check out my tax account. I got more than enough money in that to pay my quarterly taxes, to pay my my estimated 2000. I guess this is a couple years ago, so 2018 taxes. I mean, he's like, and I've never had to not sweat about that. That is freedom.
That is true. And that's what I mean. My whole goals are to create freedom for people so that they don't have to depend on government or demand ridiculous things from government to save them, because that just creates a bigger problem, which we are seeing now with the Fed printing money faster than anyone has ever seen, which creates an unstable economy. And I would much rather that we have great funded, stable business owners who can weather this storm and put up with the things we need to and keep this country growing and stable and strong, because it's the business owners who are creating the jobs and helping make this economy thrive and grow. And so it's always important to help make sure that they can thrive and grow and they can do those things. And I've shared success stories many times on how people have been able to handle 6-figure tax bills without worrying. And, as this episode's coming out, I don't know if people realize July 15th, you're going to get a triple whammy on taxes. So if you're not prepared for that, it's going to be a very hard day on July 16th.
That's right. That is so true, because you know it's coming, but people just don't think about it. And the profit first methodology of putting that money aside and having that tax money set aside, and you just write a check and then move on. Oh my gosh, Rocky, that's so powerful.
It is super, super powerful. Greg, thank you so much for joining us today. If people would like to connect with you, learn more about you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, Rocky, again, thank you for allowing me to be here. And I'm just honored to be able to be part of this show that is helping entrepreneurs secure profits. I'd love to connect with your listeners. I'd love to be able to help them to develop a relationship with their banker, even if it's not with me, but one that is meaningful, valuable, and that you look at and say, yeah, that is a true asset to my business. So the best way to reach out to me is either through LinkedIn. I'm Greg Martin, and I am in Bryan College Station, Texas. I'm most active probably on LinkedIn than all the other social media platforms. Or you can go to theentrepreneursbanker.com. Again, that's theentrepreneursbanker.com. And there you will be able to get access to a lot of the articles that I've written. I try to write an article a week that talks to entrepreneurs about how to use their banker strategically, their bank and their banker strategically, to maybe understand a little bit more of how the banker and the bank thinks, to encourage and strengthen your leadership skills. Or I reach out to experts such as yourself that I don't necessarily have the expertise in their field, an attorney, CPA, a business transition planner, stuff like that, to be able to say, okay, here's some things that you as an entrepreneur need to know. Again, you can find all of that on theentrepreneursbanker.com.
And I will put that in the show notes so that people can just click and make those connections. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Rocky. It's my pleasure. And to all your listeners out there, you need to make sure that you are subscribed and you are listening to this man, having profit and having the answers of what it takes in order to put profit in your business. That is gold.
That it is. I really enjoyed having Greg on the show to share his expertise and help you better utilize your banker. I'm putting Greg's LinkedIn profile in the show notes if you want to connect with him. Many business owners have their zone of genius, and they love that part of the business. There are parts of the business they hate, and for a lot of them, it's doing their numbers. If you want me to deal with your numbers because you hate it, let's chat. I only have a few coaching slots open, and it takes time, so don't wait or you may end up on the waiting list. Use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on my calendar to see if I can help you. If you want to learn about living the life of your dreams, check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. Remember, you don't need more resources. You need to be more resourceful. Let's focus on the bottom line. And let's repeat the mantra: revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Let's thrive and grow. Have a profitable week.